if you had to teach aliens about human music, what's the first thing you would sing to them?
Welcome to Bonfire Conversations. In this episode, we explore the power of voice, not just as music, but as a force that heals, transforms, and connects us to something deeper. My guest is a force of nature, the legendary Loire Cotler, the extraordinary vocalist behind Dune's soundtrack. In this deep and spiritual conversation, we dive into music therapy, the physicality of performance, and the unseen forces behind vocal expression. Loire shares what it was like working with Zimmer, how she developed her Dune vocal language, and why rhythm and sound connect us to something bigger than ourselves. She also opens up about the spiritual connection between sound and human consciousness, and the role of music therapy in healing. This conversation was a journey that gave me new perspectives on life, music, and the world around us. Before we begin, please consider liking, subscribing, and commenting on Bonfire Conversations. The podcast is available on YouTube and all the major streaming platforms. Thank you for being here. This is my conversation with Loire Cotler.
Yes.
Yes, we did it.
Finally, we're here.
I'm so pleased to meet you. Finally.
Are you kidding me? This is an honor. I can't believe it. Thank you so much, Loire.
It's my pleasure.
How are you doing? Doing great?
Doing great. Thank you. I was going to ask, I ran in and I want to make sure that I have all my settings right for your beautiful show.
Oh, thank you. Everything is perfect.
Yeah.
Everything is perfect. Yeah,
Super
great.
duper, because I know there's all these possibilities. There, HD. There filters, which we're not using because this is unfiltered.
Yeah.
This is the real chat, the real thing here.
Amazing. I remember before the first Dune came out, Hans Zimmer released Paul's Dream, this incredible piece that essentially serves as Paul's theme. And in the middle of that track, your voice bursts out and over. And from that moment on, every time I hear your voice, I get goosebumps. And it's like it gives me a strength, a sort of mental and emotional cleanse. It's such a powerful reminder of what I always say, that human voice is the most powerful and emotional musical instrument. So just to be able to listen to your voice live is just crazy.
Wow. Thank you for saying it. I'm so, I'm very, you touched my heart by saying that. It's,
thank you.
Whenever anything that we create, that it comes from a place of passion and purpose and intention, and then it transcends beyond yourself. It's the most special achievement when it's not about anything that you have done, but it's more about what it's become. And then it's separate almost from the creators, because it lives then as an imprint in other people's hearts and souls. So
Exactly.
what a way. I hope did we start?
Yeah, we're in it.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
We're in it because it really is a beautiful way that you opened the conversation, because I really felt it. It touched me. So
I'm so pleased. Yeah. So you've consistently used your voice as an instrument throughout your work, and what really fascinates me is the connection between your approach to vocal expression and music therapy. So I'm very curious about that. Can you tell me about music therapy, how it works, and how you personally incorporate that into your performance?
Okay, another amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you. These great questions. I just knew it when. Okay,
Awesome.
I just. Well, let me draw a thread. There's a kind of a golden braid, through the whole journey, I think. And let's just take, for example, how you began with the Dune theme. You
Yeah.
said something like, did you say clearing, purifying
Yes.
energy?
It really gives me strength, but
Yeah.
it's not the energy of the music. It kind of like it let go of any emotional feeling that is overwhelming at the moment. And honestly, I've listened to a lot of time. I'm feeling like down or overwhelmed with work. That part,
Yeah.
that is just like, when you scream, you empty yourself. It's
Hmm.
someone beautifully, perfectly doing that for me. And I'm just in the middle of the street with headphones on. And wow, magic. Isn't that magic?
Yeah. The way that I have been involved with music therapy, there's different portals to it. One would have been the clinical work, which we can talk about at
Yeah.
some point, which I'll get into if you want. And that's one portal. That's one aspect of how music therapy is a very important modality in civilization, probably since, well, I don't know, since recorded history, but in different iterations. Um, but as a clinical modality, that is something that I was involved with very much so in hospitals and clinics and and working with uh, clients and patients that were enduring the kinds of suffering that uh, no language, no words could soothe or give an outlet for their expression, because words were not enough. And so, in that respect, the type of clinical applications of music therapy could allow for the connection to deepen and also give a vessel for an amplifier or a megaphone, in a way, for
Yeah.
expression, and for whether it was pain on a physical level, whether it was on an emotional level, whether it was all of those things, whether it was as a tool to help someone to learn how to speak again because they became aphasic because of a stroke or a brain injury. The list goes on. So in the clinical realm, that's one portal. But that foundation never, ever left me. It was probably more of who I am and how I came into the world. And that I got into music as a professional musician, using my toolbox of musicality, my wonder and adventure as a musician and as a seeker. Then I also had a vessel to filter this intention into the world in some way. So whether it's a movie soundtrack or an improvisation or my creative collaborations with other composers or musicians behind the scenes or on the stage, the intention is coming from the same place, which is that every note contains in its DNA the highest form of communication and connection that we could share to each other and as an organism, as one being. And so our responsibility is to raise frequencies of love and passion and the the we-ness of things, the we-ness, we of the of the experience here in this version of our journey. And so the music therapy possibility can happen all the time in how we resonate. But when we apply it and narrow focus it into something like, for me, just to use your example, whether, it's the music that I collaborated on for Dune or something else or an album project, the intention is always the same. And the result of it is, exactly your reaction is why I felt so touched, because it takes an open channel and an open heart to recognize when something is coming from that place. You feel it,
Yeah,
it
exactly.
moves. It moves
And
energy, that needs to be moved, I think.
and again, this is so magical because last week again, in my release radar on Spotify, a new work of yours came up, and it was a soundtrack for the movie. If I'm pronouncing it right, Fate. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I didn't know anything about that. I didn't know the movie. I just like, oh, Loire, that's new work by Loire. And honestly, it really music really affect me. I don't usually cry or get emotional, but music, without even knowing what this is coming from, and the album cover was so that this is like an action movie or something, and it really kind of like, and I was in the car, and it kind of brought me to tears, and there was again that woman, that the voice that is kind of like calling something within me, and these are these things happening, and makes you curious. I mean, like 5 years ago, I was just randomly listening to this beautiful piece of music, Irish music, and this beautiful singer, this beautiful female singer, was singing something in Irish, and I didn't know the language, so I was listening to that, and again, I was crying my eyes out and didn't know what this is even about. And I went out and searched about it, and I realized it's about the Irish Revolution, and and I reached out to the artist, the singer. Unfortunately, I forgot her name now, but I said, I don't know anything about the meaning of this, and I didn't know about that historical event, but it really changed me, and it made me to go study about that particular event, and it even, and I could kind of like relate that to anything that happening to my life. Is it about a revolution in Ireland, or is it about me, my relationship with people, my relationship with my surrounding? And your voice is always doing that. It's really about someone who knows how to connect with people without using words. Crazy. Yeah.
I hear you, and I share in the being moved when somebody is tapped in to that place, that universal heartbeat. And maybe actually that's it. That's just it, is that I could say that rhythm and my work in rhythm and music therapy, those combined give me a sense of pulse connection, and to emotion and to experiences that maybe I had personally or that I witnessed, whether it was witnessing trauma, experiencing trauma, along my childhood adventures and journeys, whether it is having an experience with something like grief and loss that we already know is intertwined with our experience of the deepest love.
Yeah.
So there are these how would you say, counterparts maybe
Yeah.
to these powerful experiences that once we connect with the tuning of that, the resonance of that, then, and we tap into it in some way personally, or through musical empathy, or just empathy and compassion, then that's the land of infinity.
Yeah.
Because then again, it's a transcendent space. It's a boundless space of connection that is part of the collective. Not even the collective unconscious, but just the collective experience. Because at some point, everybody is going to hopefully experience love. And
Yeah.
that also means that that at some point we will all experience loss and grief. And these are the types of tuning that also come into play so very often in film work, in music in general. But if we're going to talk a little bit about you brought up the film, it's loaded, it's so loaded with resonance of human experience and storytelling. And so even if it has no, like you mentioned, the beautiful Irish singer, or listening to, like something I did that is for like an action thriller. The beyond language, beyond thought is for me is a place that I like to live in, because I feel so connected with everything and everyone without the boundaries of ego and critical self-criticism, or other people's opinions and judgments and all that shit. That doesn't matter.
Yeah.
This shouldn't matter. It's beyond physicality. This is just a body and a vessel, but that doesn't really matter to me. It's just a carrying case for this timeline that we're in right now together.
And you've mentioned physicality. That's another amazing thing. It's about your stage presence. I mean, the way you move, the way you almost conjure this unseen energy through your voice, to me, it feels like magic. Like you're channeling some invisible force that makes people feel and think deeply. And can you talk about the physicality of your performance? How does your body movement shape the way you connect with your voice? And how do you prepare yourself for such demanding performance?
Well, I don't know. I don't choreograph anything. So that's the first thing. So I never knew really what was happening or what it looked like until somebody showed me videos of the performances that
Wow.
we did, so I allow the overall shape of what's happening energetically to just move through me. And the way the only way to prepare for that, first of all, wellness is so important anyway on the road
Yeah.
and just as an artist, and that does perform and needs to use my instrument that lives inside my body. But the prep, so that's, that goes without saying. I mean, how else could we do show after show after show like that on tour, and then come back and then jump into the studio to get, into projects. But so that's a given. But to prepare for anything that involves something to me that feels like a sanctuary and a sacred space, whether it's the sacred space or sanctuary of we're all here together for this uplifting musical journey. And, there's nothing more profoundly pure than that. Or the idea that this is also a space where it's not just local energy or vibration of music, but if you believe it, which I do, and I believe the term for it would be like the morphic resonance. I believe that that's Sheldrake, but we'll have to look into that. But that the non-local experience of the music that we make is just as powerful, if not more powerful, than the local experience, because that's a boundless space. That's an unbounded space that reaches, because music is vibrations and frequencies, and the waves of it are absolutely channeling space-time continuums in a way that I don't understand, but I feel it. So when I'm on stage and expressing the way that I do, it's pure. It's just coming through me. And then the physicality of it is just it's just part of it's like, like any other channel. And I'm responding also to my bandmates as well, because I can feel it's a very intimate experience when you're on stage with your bandmates, even though in that case it's a massive stage. We're so in tune to each other.
And it's beautiful that you've mentioned that your music is not only local, and because last week I was really thinking about the way your voice, your music, your work affect me, and we are miles away. And I went to a study about how music was recorded throughout the history, and to realize the technicality, the science behind it, in order to somehow maybe understand how this emotion flies in the air and goes to someone else, some part of the other part of the world. And it's crazy that when it was like in old times or now, when we talk through this microphone, we are vibrating a diagram, and it's recording that vibration the way we move air, actually. And then in reverse, this happens, and it moves air to the way that I record it and plays it back. So basically, someone's voice, another part of the word, is moving air exactly the same way she or he, for the first time, recorded it. and it's completely physical. So it's not local.
That's right. That's right.
And one other thing that I was thinking about was like, what if we sing something that carries our emotion, that like is moving our emotion through a song or something, and then 20 years later we go listen to that. Do we feel that being young again, just like the way it was that voice was produced from us? And that's a question I have from you. Do you go back and to listen to your old work and kind of like feel the same person that you were back then and understand her more now?
That is a great question. Well, the first thing is that I hardly ever go backwards because I don't believe in backwards, and I
Yeah.
don't believe in forwards. That's the first thing. So,
Wow.
but I appreciate it, the question a lot,
Yeah.
and I understand it in the 3D concepts. But I don't exist personally with the program of back, forward, past, future.
Yeah.
But I respect the ideas about it, and I think that it helps a lot with organization for one timeline that we might be in. But interestingly enough, I mean, I appreciated that you mentioned that you heard some things on Spotify because I didn't even actually know that I was on Spotify until recently,
Yeah.
and I and then I suddenly realized how much on is not out there that I
Yeah.
haven't released because,
This
little
is one
behind.
album.
Yeah, it's talk about timelines,
Yeah.
and because I'm not in a rush with anything, and I have plenty of time because I'm here, because I'm present. So when you're present, then you have all the time in the world, even though I have deadlines too. And that's
Yeah.
when you have to respect the this other type of concept, right? And also, I never want to be late, or of
Yeah.
course, when I'm on a gig, I'm never late. Actually, I'm extremely on time when it comes to my work, because my work is, you know, I get it. We have to, we fit in to government time, right?
Yeah.
Okay, but let me get back to your question. When uh, when I'm in a meditative state and I'm working on, maybe I'm going into a state of meditation, working on a project, whether it was Dune or something else. My experiences in all of my musical experiences are always still living in me, right? And this comes back to your interesting, beautiful description of like when you are connecting with a microphone, when you're singing into a microphone, and this idea of, well, we'll record something and then 20 years later, do you feel the same things? Do you go back to that state? That's already inside of my the way that my musical being works, right? So I live much more in a musical state of being very often, and those types of um, sounds of my voice and early rhythms and still creep in, and I can very easily uh, find my way into a child spirit state of being, you know. um when I have listened to demo tapes, which the public has not heard from my teenage years. Those are some really interesting songs. Hearing myself, my songs, stuff that I wrote and sang and played and recorded even when I was 16, 17 years old. And I found that to be profound because I could hear how I was still chipping away at the same things that I'm chipping away at now. Whether it was rhythms or how to express a certain thing that I feel like so that's one aspect to it. The other aspect is that I also, to answer your question finally, indeed, especially with one of the tracks, I went right back into the emotion that I was experiencing when I first sang that at the time, which happened to be incredible sadness and loss and grief and trauma and all these different experiences around what happens when one of your parents is sick and eventually dying, which happened to me. My father died when I was just turning 18, but he was sick for many years. And so tapping in to that as a young budding musician, a passionate musician at that young age, I can hear the paradoxical adult child or child adult, because I could hear this young girl, and at the same time, I could hear an old soul that knew exactly what was going on and that had already experienced all those things, and that I was now at this next stage of re-experiencing, maybe, or tapping in a different dimension now to something that I was already accustomed to somehow. It wasn't like a surprise. And music allowed me to go through all of that in a very awakened state, rather than, and this is a music therapy tidbit, because if I didn't have music during those years, maybe I would have, who knows what would have happened to me. I may not be here, when pain is so hard and difficult. Who knows how, we all have different ways of navigating experience in life. But music was, for me, a way to become awake and unafraid.
Yeah, and it's amazing that you've mentioned your father. I'm sorry for your loss, but it's exactly the same thing that happened to me. And the reason that I ask is I, maybe from 10 years ago up to now, I decided to make music based on my important moments in my life, the way I feel. And my father was sick 5 years ago. He passed away, and I made music then as well. And these are the music that no one ever heard. I just
Mhm.
had them, and I only can listen to them and go back and see how I was feeling, because I can't really talk about them through words. It's
Mhm.
crazy.
No,
But
I
with music,
understand that.
yeah, one note, and I was like, oh, I understand that note. And very interestingly, that we're talking about your work on Dune now, even the first time I watched the first Dune, the moment that really got me was when Paul was teaching his mother how to do what was that? That dancing ritual.
Mhm.
And that scene, I was watching that, and I remember when my father passed away, one thing that really was in my mind was, okay, from now on, I have to take care of my mom. I have to be, I have to take responsibility. And when I see that moment when he was teaching his mother how to walk, and I saw that moment, it's like, oh, she's looking up to him now. And it was so impactful. That's something that probably no one might
I
see
remember
it
that,
that
and I
way.
remember working on that. I remember
Yeah,
hearing that cue when David Fleming and Hans were working on it, and some of the other composers, especially for some reason, I'm hoping that I'm remembering this correctly, but it's a very powerful scene,
yeah,
and that moved me a lot as well. I know exactly the moment you're talking about.
yeah. That's
I
the
can't quite remember all the score at that moment. I kind of do actually remember it. If I close
yeah,
my eyes, I can go there. But and yeah, I mean the score also, what Hans and the team managed to do there, and
yeah.
from yeah. Anyway,
You mentioned about your performance, and I was thinking about it that when you're recording in a recording booth, all right, you are actually controlling past and future. You can delete something that you were not happy in the past, and you can say, okay, I'm going to do it this way in the future, and you have control. But when you're performing live, you're exactly at the sweetest spot that I figured you would like.
yeah,
You're in the present.
yeah,
And when you're singing in the present for the audience, with all the people around you, what do you see and what do you feel? I'm
hmm,
curious about that because I don't get to experience that. But that emotional performance, when I see it, I'm like, I wonder what's on her mind.
yeah.
What does she see? Yeah,
Well, first thing is the music, what depending on what I'm performing, right? Because these pieces are also tapping into the story. It's all
yeah,
about the story, and for Hans, it's always about the story, right? I
yeah,
mean, there's um so like on the last tour, the one that we just came back from, I was I I also, because Lisa couldn't be there for most of the tour, she was only there for um, the first part for Saudi Arabia, but she wasn't on the US part. And so that meant that I would be singing Gladiator, and as well as Dune. And so um, it's a very different experience physically to sing. It's like two different instruments almost, to
yeah,
sing Dune or to sing Gladiator. Um, but the driving force of both of them is still the same, in the sense of tapping into what is the soul or the heart or the of the music and the story.
yeah.
And that, for me, if I'm present with Once Upon a Time, about I want to tell you a story,
Oh, yeah,
whether it's,
yeah,
you know, the wisdom, fierce, um, power, unwavering power of women and the Bene Gesserit, and the um, collective divine feminine spirit that is that I'm allowing to tell its story, to give it space, because I think that that's really what is happening, is that you're clearing yourself and just letting it all let's go, you know,
Yeah. Wow.
so that you give, because then there's space for an authentic expression from these women, in that case, these women that need to tell the world something,
Yeah.
to give a message. And even if, I always say this, that even if the message is fueled by, you know, what Hans calls like the banshee call, or you know,
Yeah.
or the warrior woman, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
The language shape, what I wrote, what I composed in the words have a meaning. They're not just improvised lyrics. They're lyrics, and they have a meaning, and they're encoded also. And people are connecting with that without realizing it. I love that everyone's also having fun because they can't figure out exactly what the lyric is.
That's
And
interesting. I wanted to
I'll
ask
make,
you about that.
yeah. I
But
mean, I
I
have to
was
put it
like,
on my
maybe
website or something, but
she doesn't want to tell us about that.
no, no,
Maybe.
no, no. I just think that it never came up, you know. I
Yeah.
think people, it became so transcendent beyond me, even,
Yeah.
and beyond everybody, that
Yeah.
people just started having so much fun with
Yeah.
it. I didn't dare correct anyone or
Wow.
chime in. Plus, I don't do social media, so I don't
Yeah.
know. People would just send me things and they would show me, and I would love hearing. I always love hearing people singing it and having fun with it, and even doing arrangements of the piece, you know, with
Yeah.
extensive arrangements. But
Yeah.
I didn't dare, you know, step in and say, they're not singing the lyric. They're making up their own version of it.
Yeah.
But no, there is a lyric, and it's obviously inspired, you know, by the characters, and by what Hans, I mean, you know, everything is driven by the creative collaboration and Hans's vision and genius, and also Denis, the director, and Tanya, producer, and the editor, Joe Walker. And then, of course, in collaboration with the team, you know, in this case, you know, I will at some point list everybody that I worked with on that, because it was part of a wave of creativity that just came together in such an intensely poetic, magnificent way. And sorry, I got sidetracked because I started to imagine everybody that I was working with on it, and I got like, you know, blown away, because I'm blown away by everybody that worked on that film and that music, and the musicians, you know, who you, so okay, so where were we about it? What was I saying about
You were talking about the language of
the language?
it's
Yeah. So live performance,
yeah.
that language, you'll hear it the same way every time, but that is for me the story that helps me to tap into the story and to the shapes. There is something very almost like a sacred geometry that goes on with vowel sounds and language shapes and mantras. And that we know this, and there's a lot of really interesting stuff out there on toroidal patterns and shapes with the breath, and with the way that our thoughts and are connecting with our shapes and vowel sounds and all that. And so for me, the power of the story is coming through this lyric, and through obviously the combination of the music, the Hans's music, and the lyric connection, because the lyric guided me into the vocal arrangement for the rhythm. And that rhythm is the thing that I hear everybody connecting with, you know, in terms of the transcendent, nature of it, of when everybody is, conjuring the worm in their bed, and making their pets do funny things. And I love it. But what I hear is them singing that rhythm. But that rhythm for me came from when the message came through me of the lyric of what that shape is. So I think that for that piece, that is what is going on for me. And then, the opening, the House Atreides, same thing. If you listen, you'll hear the lyrics, you'll hear the flow and the rhythmic contour of how the rhythm of the lyric for me, in combination with the notes, the melodic information given to me by Hans and the team, or collaborated on with me and Hans and the team. For me, that in that case, that the House Atreides was a collaboration with Hans and Omer Benjamin. And that was one of the most really just spiritually powerful moments, because when you collaborate and you just suddenly find yourself alone, with this magnificent melody, and asked and directed to go into a space that you've never been into before, for example. And then these rhythms and shapes emerge, and you're like, you just have to, again, give it permission to reveal itself, and write it down, don't forget it, or record it really quick. But that guides the performances. And that's because of that, I can always be present, even when I'm like, even when we're exhausted, and, we've been traveling so much and the voice gets tired. So it's not always a perfect, sound, or my voice is not always in tip top
Well, it's
shape.
a very demanding piece. Yeah.
Yeah. But the story will always be there and will always be true. And then, of course, with Gladiator, when I stand in for Lisa, it's another storyline, and for me, it's honoring her when she's not there. And
it's very beautiful.
What she and Hans created, and I have she's also very dear in my heart, and a friend, and so I know the story, I know the background from her journey in that piece and what was happening during the creation of it. So all of that resonance, again, not local, because if I'm delivering it, she's also delivering it.
Yeah.
I don't allow myself to get in the way.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. You were talking about the rhythms, the language of Dune, and it's very interesting. I'm a composer myself, and I'm from Iran, so I'm actually from Middle East. And your performance is like, okay, it's kind of similar to Middle Eastern music, but it is not. And that's when you feel that it's outlandish, that it's coming from somewhere else. And I was curious, did you like study anything about Middle East, or was it completely like, okay, this is happening in another planet, in another timeline?
Yeah, I mean, I have a deep history of studying world traditions. So,
Wow.
yeah. So that's the first thing, is that what I already am passionate about is, since I was very young meaning teenage years, is musics of the world, traditions of music, and so. I mean, and the other thing is that my rhythmic work outside of the film work as a rhythmist who plays with percussion a lot and plays with Glenn Velez a lot, my partner. I mean, he's playing the Arabic tambourine all the time and the rik. And so I feel so comfortable um, in music from Middle East, from India, I mean, Central Asia, I mean, I don't, I don't consider myself a master of anything, but I'm certainly passionate and tuned in to enough that it is possible that these different traditions might sneak in from time to time, and there's so much crossover as well with these traditions. So, of course, that music from Iran, traditional music, you're going to hear some of the same scales, similar scales, in other parts of the world, right? However, the traditional music from your part of the world is so, so magical and so
Yeah.
beautiful. And, you know, I, there's also such a lineage as well, especially because I have such a history in my work, my other work, playing with frame drums from around the world. And that also conjures another aspect of the divine feminine, because in the ancient world, I learned from Glenn Velez that these drummers were women, the mother goddesses and all that from the ancient world. And so the frame drum has a very big presence in traditional music. And of course the Sufi traditions, and I mean, so yeah, I appreciate the connection. It was nothing conscious, coming through, just letting it happen and chipping away at the directions that I was given, and then improvising enough with some of the notes and seeing what would happen.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
beautiful because the entire book is very much influenced by Middle Eastern traditions, and the names even are straight from Arabic words or from Farsi. So, but what's great about this performance is probably I can only tell you about that is that, all right, people around the world might listen to that and say, "Oh, this is from another planet. This is a music. This is a sound we've never heard of. Perfect, yeah." But there, but someone from Middle East might listen to it and they say, "Hey, yeah, this is the music of our town. It's nothing from another planet." But it is not. It's really something unique. This is
Yeah.
something new.
Well, you're right. I mean, in the score, of course, some of the tonality and the colors and the timbres and the duduk and all that, of course, you have
Yeah.
a beautiful blend of cultures going, and of course, there has to be some um, some quote homage, to the book, because of course
Yeah.
the names. I mean,
Yeah.
that's no
But
secret. Yeah, but the vocal style, if they were gonna, need that, they would have called a
yeah,
traditional singer, right? That
exactly.
wasn't the
Yeah.
point. That wasn't the point.
That's
They
why it
didn't.
worked.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. This was really about um what it really was about was the direction of, can you swallow sand?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Wow.
then once
Yeah.
that that's really what, I think brought me also out of my, I mean, because I don't sing like that. all the time. That's a character that's customized,
Wow.
for
Yeah.
that film. And so you'll notice that same human
Yeah.
instrument maybe in other areas of my work, but that specific one with all the raspy, sand and a bit more towards, as I've mentioned in other interviews, towards the flamenco, that I would say, if there was any direction for the actual sound, that I knew that
It's beautiful.
I knew it had to have rawness, like it was like dry, like just, yeah, like on the edge of not being uh completely human,
Yeah.
but something else interdimensional is what it felt like for me.
Yeah. A few years ago, I asked Hans Zimmer about becoming a great composer, and he was so kind enough to write me a relatively long letter. And it's on my Instagram page. Anyone listening to this and curious about that is always, I'll talk about it a lot. But one thing that he mentioned, and it's the proof of that, he said, I'm quoting, forget about that Italian mumbo jumbo, always talk in abstract with your creative partner. And this is exactly it. Like, you're not looking for what's the music in Middle East and that, but it's about like sand and worm.
Yeah. No, he has such an amazing ability to lead into the unknown worlds.
Yeah.
And because there's such a trust, I will go.
Yeah.
I will go even if it's not easy, physically or mentally or even just musically. Most of the time it's going to require blood, sweat,
Yeah.
and tears
Oh
when
God.
it comes to
And thank you
working
for
with
that.
Hans. And but because we're driven by the love of what we do, first and foremost, then it's like such a blessing to have that opportunity.
Great. All right. So, Loire, I have a segment on my podcast called Penny for Your Thoughts.
Penny
where I
for
ask
your
some
thoughts.
fun and personal questions to get to know you better. Are you ready for them?
I have no choice. I'm always ready.
You can always skip the question if you don't have answers. Because sometimes people tell me these are hard questions, and sometimes I don't even have answers for. So yeah. So if you had to teach, first one, if you had to teach aliens about human music, what's the first thing you would sing to them?
Well, first of all, I talk to aliens every day. So,
wow.
we've already been sharing our ideas for my whole entire life.
Yeah.
And I really mean that.
Wow.
So
really?
yeah.
Amazing.
There's higher beings that have been in my life that have shown themselves to me for my whole life. So, I don't think that there's anything that I could teach them, because they know already. So they're so advanced. We're like babies.
Yeah.
We don't know. They know a lot more than we do about everything. So I think that the only thing that matters is the frequencies of love, And that's the only
Ah,
messages that I get over and over and over and over and over and over again. So even if I'm a warrior and I'm shredding my vocal cords and fucking everything up, it doesn't matter, because they know that I'm doing the best I can to infuse love through it all. And hopefully people, even if they're like, yeah, badass, rock and roll, they still feel that what's beyond it is love and the frequency of love. So
wow.
it's a
What a
great
great
question.
what a great answer, because you didn't say I would sing that and then you said I would introduce them to love through
Yeah.
music. That's the best answer. Perfect. And
Well, no, I wouldn't introduce them. I would make sure they
yeah,
know that I
yeah, yeah.
heard them, because they
Wow.
told me, they taught me, they teach me,
Wow.
they teach us. They're
Yeah.
always teaching us. We're being guided all the time,
Beautiful.
but we have to
Beautiful.
just listen. We have to listen.
Exactly. Okay, moving on to the next one.
Okay.
All right. If you could perform anywhere in the world, no rules, where would it be?
Sorry, no what? No.
No rules. You
Oh,
could
no.
perform anywhere in the world. Where would it be?
Oh, wow. In the through the interdimensional space,
Wow.
where my dad's spirit and soul is
Oh,
living, and so that I can show him what I've been doing.
amazing answer. Oh my God. This is beautiful. All right. Okay. Moving on to the next one. If you could describe the sound of your soul in one vocal expression, what would it be?
Can you repeat the question again? Sorry.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
If you could describe the sound of your soul in one
Oh,
vocal expression, what would it be?
just the
Ah,
breath. Just the
ah,
breath.
that is so calming. That is so beautiful. Best answer. Wow. Amazing. Okay. Moving on to the next one. If music is a language, what do you think your voice is trying to tell the universe?
You know the answer.
Yeah. We already answered that, I
We
guess.
did that
Yeah,
already.
yeah, 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 yeah. All right. Okay, we're moving on to the next one. Um,
We could say it again.
of
Love.
course, we can
How
always
about
talk about
this?
love.
Love, empathy,
Yes.
compassion, and passion.
Oh, that is beautiful. Yes, something we really, really need during these times. Okay, moving on to the next one. Do you believe certain frequencies or rhythms can unlock hidden parts of human consciousness? If so, have you
Yes.
experienced it yourself?
Yes. Yes. I know it's true. For
I
sure.
do believe that we are more than what we are, or at least what we know about ourselves, and that that's why I ask that, because I think through sound and music we can kind of like unlock that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Absolutely.
Okay. Moving on to next one. In an alternative reality where you couldn't use your voice, how do you
Mm.
think you would express yourself artistically?
Oh, artistically,
Yeah.
probably. mm, Probably in an alternative reality, you said?
Yeah. Yeah. Where you're not
Uh,
using your voice to express
oh,
yourself
okay, like in,
artistically.
I see, I see. Uh, Probably just through music therapy work,
Yeah.
service work. I love to
Wow.
serve.
Yeah.
So through that work. So I wouldn't need to use my voice,
Yeah.
per se. I could use other instruments, to connect, and yeah.
Yeah. Do you paint, or do you
I
uh
used to. I used
yeah?
to paint a little bit. Yeah.
Why did you stop?
I didn't really stop.
Yeah.
Actually,
It's there.
yeah, it's there. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm just flowing, into
Yeah.
what calls me.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Great. Okay. Moving on to the next one. What is the most profound moment in your life where music completely altered your perspective?
Uh, there's so many.
Yeah.
I think that when I heard Glenn Velez perform, do like a lecture demo or a lecture performance because this was in 2002 in New York. And I participated. I was actually teaching at the time and at the New School University. And he was he was conducting, I'm remembering now what it was, a master class that he had us entering into his hand dance method of teaching rhythm. And it involved stepping in a time cycle, vocalizing rhythms using the Indian konakal, which
Yeah.
is my, what the style that I do. And, and, um, there was something about, and then of course, watching him also utilizing that approach while playing the frame drum, um, going on the inside of it, having him lead us into that space, and then seeing him live play a solo, utilizing all of that of what I just had learned. It changed my entire perspective about how to enter a musical space. Like my entire training was turned upside down. It was really an aha moment. And since then, the way that I approach music has shifted. And I'm not the only one. Anybody that had studied with him,
Wow.
or that had studied what he does, it really, really shifted everything for me. And plus, I learned the overtone singing from him. So getting into the overtone series and understanding those ratios, and how they connect with chakras, with colors, there's so many avenues I can go with this, but I think that really was the turning point. I wouldn't be here speaking about any of
Wow.
this probably if I hadn't had that haven't had that kind of rite of passage to that information.
Amazing. Amazing. And this was the best penny for your thoughts QA that I've ever had. Your answers were amazing. All right.
Oh.
Before yeah, before we say goodbye, I want you to if anyone is curious about your music therapy, if anyone's gonna is trying to use that for healing, um, what should they do? How do they approach you? How do they approach your amazing work? And please talk about that to inform people about your amazing work.
Well, I think the first advice that I would ever give to anybody is to get into some kind of a meditation practice, because that will guide each person into discovery of what's right for them and how they want to serve and how they want to connect and navigate the universe. And so that would be my first thing, because we need more of that inside work, the inner work, the slowing down, and music and healing is so readily available to everybody, especially when we are doing that inner work, and then we start tapping in to the sounds and to the expressions that we can journey with. So that's for self, right? And then I would always recommend that people consider to study music therapy, the actual, in academia, because there's plenty of programs now in universities and in schools for music therapy. So I would recommend that just do a little deep diving into what's available in their local community for that. But getting back to the meditation, if everybody would want to explore a little bit more of the rhythmic power of their voice, either through the vocal percussion style that I do from South India, the Konakal, or through mantras, because that is a way to access the voice that opens up a space for creativity that I think could benefit everyone, because it just does. It's beyond, so we don't have associations to it, and then it also allows you to access a part of your voice that you didn't even know you had. And that voice that you didn't even know you had will translate into maybe the instrument that you're playing, or your composition that you're working on, or the musicians that you're connecting with and playing with. So I think that the rhythmic power of the voice is not just for the shred factor of look how fast I can sing these rhythms, but moreover for expansion, musical expansion, and also the healing aspect of what happens when we go into this alternate space that's not just in our 3D physical understanding, to go beyond that.
Yeah, that is beautiful. And I think that's a great place to end this. And I just want to say, Loire, your voice heals, your kindness warms the heart, and your art inspires. You're truly the voice of something better in this world. And I cherish every note you hit. And I deeply cherish the opportunity you gave me to have this conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on your show, and for doing such beautiful work and helping to make things better